Well, here I am making another clip in my van due to the nature of the situation outside. It's been the craziest, wettest winter spring in memory for me. It's been wild up here in Auckland, and I was down in Wellington last weekend and it wasn't any better down there either. The weather has been windy and wet in Auckland pretty much for most of the winter and the beginning of spring, and today is no exception. And I'm making a video on my van again about this book by David Icke from his reality trilogy. This is the second book in his trilogy, The Dream. The first book's called The Trap, the second book is called The Dream, and the third book is called The Revelation. I'm really enjoying the book. I like reading Icke's work. A lot of what he writes I've read before in most of his books. It's like a rinse and repeat, but with more information that he brings in with more knowledge. And in a book like this, he has to be a bit more concise. In other books like The Answer, you're getting close to 1,000 pages. You know, you're getting a big thick tome. And in this book, it's more concise and it's more focused on the nature of the extraordinary revelation of who we are and where we are. It took a while, didn't it, to sink in, to read it. So I'm really enjoying this book. The Trap was like a lead into this, and I myself have so many questions around the nature of this book. Like, I'm someone who now discerns information when I read it. I'm drawn to information, right? I was drawn to read The Trap about 3-4 weeks ago. I was literally intuitively drawn to read it. So I read it pretty quickly, and I'm almost through The Dream as well. I'm probably about 60 pages from finishing it, which I'm going to go straight into The Revelation after The Dream, because I want to read through this trilogy. And for me, as a writer, as an author, as a channel, the books that I wrote between 2008 and 2020, when I'm in a phase of writing, when I go into the place where I begin to write books, when information, usually what I used to do, my process was, I've done videos on this as well, my process is, I was working off a day job. My day hustle at the time I was working on when I was writing was interior exterior decorating, being a foreman, project manager, and a painter, interior exterior decorator. I had all those jobs, all those roles, and I was moving between those 3 or 4 roles, moving between those roles. And then while I was doing that, while I was doing my day hustle, I would have information coming into my field of awareness, and that field of awareness, that information would compound. Stories would come in, information would come in, plot lines, narratives, character arcs would all come into my field of awareness while I was working my day hustle. And I would go home at night, I would study, I would write, I would find the information I needed to go to the places where my characters were going, how the plot lines filled in, how the narratives expanded as I was writing these books. So I was downloading all day and working, holding a day hustle, and going home at night, and often working 4 to 5 hours a night, writing, researching, joining dots. So when I wrote the book which bookends the Shadow and Soul series, United, with Armand Sueño, which is a part of myself from another level of existence, and there's more questions around that now after reading this book, around the nature of how Armand Sueño, the field of awareness that is that name, that label, that appellation, Armand, how that affects me now, knowing after reading this book, The Dream, because I have so many questions, and this is healthy, and this is the nature of what I feel in regards to my discernment moving forward, any information that comes into my field of awareness, I choose to discern, to sit back with it often and sit with it before I make a decision around how I choose to approach to integrate it or embody it in my life. So when I wrote the novel United, which bookends the Shadow and Soul series, Entwined and United are the two books that bookend the entire series, and any books that come after United, which means a dance called Dwaka, which is a book of poetry about a past an incarnation that I remember in Dwaka, Krishna's Dwaka, which would be the Dwapara cycle. And also Rigmarole, which I haven't finished, which I'm about a third of the way through, with Dick Swab, which is a satire, but goes very, very deeply into the anthroposophical work of Rudolf Steiner, goes very deeply into the CERN Hadron Collider, goes very deeply into the perception that I was given, the knowledge that I was given around what the Large Hadron Collider and colliders, the ones that we know of at least around the world, what they're being used for and why they're there in the first place. Especially the timing of the creation of these scientific experimental devices and the budgets they have, which are absolutely ridiculous, military budgets in the billions. But back to the dream and the questions I was asking, and then tie that in with United. When I was writing United, I had a very strong download that the archontic force that the Gnostics talk about. John Lamb Lash does a great interpretation. There's a great book that he wrote, which David Icke talks about and also cites as well. John Lamb Lash's book on the Gnostics. When I was working, I had this download that the archontic force, the smokeless fire, that the Gnostics and David Icke talks about the archons being. I had this download in 2014 that the archontic force was a form of interdimensional AI. That was pretty clear to me. And I knew how it was then, how that interdimensional AI had crossed over into this frequency band, and the way that it controlled biology, which is also a form of technology to that AI, the way it controlled biology was through nanotech. So it would infuse biology with nanotech and therefore create a hive mind between itself, the biology of the beings that the archontic AI would infuse into. It would create a antennae in the biological form with the hive mind of the AI technologically, and they would talk to each other back and forth. The AI would program the biology to do what it wanted. In that way, as a communication between the nanotech, the antenna which it created in the biology by changing the DNA, and therefore talking to the AI which would broadcast to it. I wrote about that in 2014, 2016. I published a book in 2016, United, and I think at the time David Icke was sort of moving around that idea as well, that the archons, the archontic force, was a form of interdimensional AI. Well, in this book, A Dream, and also The Trap, but more so in this book, The Dream, David Icke makes it pretty clear that his perception is that this archontic force that the Gnostics talk about is a form of AI, which is what I had the same download in 2014 when I was writing United, and it was clear, and I knew how to defeat that AI, that archontic AI, and I got the message quite clearly from the movie Independence Day. The final act, how they win and beat the alien force that comes to this planet. Through its entire computing system, they put a virus into the computing system which takes it out and destroys the ships. Well, with revelation of the method, which is what we have through our entertainment industry from Hollywood and from all over the world, they reveal to us because they have to, through natural law, how to beat this force, this archontic AI with the virus. You put a virus into the archontic AI, it's done. It's over. The simulation falls down, and then our awareness, if David Icke is correct, our awareness, which is in 5D, decodes prime reality rather than the hack that we have now in 3D, right? That's a side note. Well, this isn't what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the nature of what I've learned in this book, well, what I've perceived in this book, The Dream, and how that affects my perception on how so many modalities within our 3D frequency band bring us back and keep us in a place of a self-imposed prison. And the belief, more importantly, embody the lie to oneself, that we are the body. We are our job, we are our sex, we identify with body politics, we identify with our job, our place where we live, where we were born, our culture, whatever. We identify with the experience rather than the actual knowledge that we are all that is, ever has been, and ever will be, as David Icke says. So when I was reading this, I had this epiphany, and the epiphany was, and this is more questions than I have answers, are all the modalities that people teach, and there's so many people that teach incredible modalities, over the years that I've been putting into practice myself, I'm not going to name any names, but there's so many modalities and people over the years whose work that I've embodied to and integrated into my life in order to have and create for myself the life that I want to live within the illusion, right? Within the illusion. And my question now becomes, are all those modalities keeping me trapped in body consciousness, in the illusion, in the frequency band, rather than breaking free of it and opening up my heart vortex, which is the most simple thing you can possibly do if you understand the nature of what you're doing, opening up my heart vortex and simply allowing myself to connect my awareness back in 5D into where my point of attention is. According to David Icke in that book, The Dream, in this book, he says his perception is our mind is in the lower fourth dimension, and we are wearing a headset, more or less, in 3D, which is the mind projecting, our consciousness, our awareness in 5D projected through the mind, which is in lower fourth dimension, to perceive 3D frequency band we call reality, right? That's pretty much my interpretation of what he's saying here, right? So for me now, my question is, if I'm practicing all these modalities that I've learned about how to live my best life within this 3D reality, but knowing it's an illusion, right? It's the most important aspect of this, knowing it's all an illusion, but playing the game anyway. If I lose my ability, my point of awareness to know it's all an illusion, and I get stuck in the trap of believing that these modalities are going to bring into my life something so wonderful and create for myself in this 3D existence, if I get stuck back into the wheels of the trap and of the hamster wheel and the trap, that being that, you know, this is it, this is where I really am, right? Which is, according to the book, not where I am. My point of awareness is in 5D, and this body that I have now is nothing but a holographic form within the simulation, much like you would have a player, a player in a video game. I'm basically living, as Jeff Berwick, the Dollar Vigilante, says, it's just a video game, and he's spot on. So I'm basically, according to this book here, The Dream, and Icke's work, and other people who also perceive the nature of reality in the same way, if we're in a simulation, then this body is decoded from electrical, as David Icke says, to digital to holographic. So it's a holographic form. It's not who I really am, and it doesn't even exist. It's an illusion. So therefore, my point of awareness in 5D, if I go back to that place of where my awareness is in 5D, I know this is getting confusing. If my point of awareness is in 5D, and I go back to 5D by opening up my heart vortex completely, and allow that energy from 5D and beyond infinity to pour into out of my heart vortex to move my life in a way within the simulation, not only to break down the walls of the simulation, and therefore free other people to be able to see for themselves this is all an illusion, and free them. If they choose to be free, if they choose to be and consent to have that experience, remember, consent is the most important aspect of this entire existence. Do we consent to this? Right? I did a video on that not long ago, and hardly anyone's watched it, but it's the most important aspect of our existence is consent. Silent acquiescence is consent. The most powerful word in any language, as Mark Passio says, is no. Right? Is no. So I don't consent to any forces controlling my life. I only consent to infinity moving through my heart vortex so that I can experience infinity in this frequency band and be guided by that infinity to live my life from my point of awareness in 5D, but bring that energy and that awareness and that frequency into this one. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does to some of you who are watching this. But I'm still full of questions around the nature of, do I come to a place now that I know that, but what I feel into this and discern for myself whether this is something to embody in my life. What David Icke is sharing in this book. The reveal is something I'm really looking forward to reading, because it makes it quite clear to me that everything that I've learned with the yoga cycles, anything at all within this simulation is basically a program. It's a software program running through the hardware. And the hardware in our biology is our CPU, our brains, which are decoding this frequency band. And we believe this is real, but we're in a video game. So any modality that I'm using within the video game, any software program that I'm running in the video game through my biology, by embodying it, integrating it, and also engaging with it, does that keep me further deeply more entranced and trapped into the simulation? So therefore I walk away from it altogether and just simply open up my heart to 5D and allow my point of awareness from 5D to move through my heart vortex? Or do I keep working with modalities in my life, which, to be honest with you, a lot of the modalities I've worked with in the last 6 to 8 months with certain teachers haven't worked for me. There's been either there's blocks in my field of awareness, or there's blocks in the program, or there's a virus in the system somewhere in my system. I'm talking about software here, not in a bacterial sense. There's an energy that's blocking these modalities, in my experience, from manifesting in my life, manifesting that which I'm putting my attention and my awareness into. So, my question is, is that a sign from infinite reality that I no longer need to push into those modalities and walk away from them because they're all illusory? I can play the game if I want to. Or do I step back and go like, nah, I see them, I accept their positions and their places in people's lives and how people choose to identify with them, and embody them, integrate them, and use them like you would on any software. And often people will fall deeper and deeper entranced into the game, into the simulation, into the trap, if that's what it is, the simulation that is, if we're living in a simulation, fall deeper and deeper and be more entranced in that because of the successes they achieve through the modalities they use, which brings them more into the body, brings them more into this experience of 3D, and brings them more into a place where they're engaging deeper with 3D. And I'm not sure, and I know for me, I don't want to engage so much in 3D in a way that drags me back into this simulation or in this game where I recycle back into it again in another human body. No thanks. There's infinity to explore, as David Icke says. And, you know, we are literally on a planet that's so small in a galaxy full of planets. We're in infinity. I'd rather leave this place, this realm, and move beyond it. And David Icke tells you how to do that in this book, The Dream. His perceptions of how to do that, which also comes in with the Gnostic work. I'd rather leave this level of the game and leave the game altogether and explore infinity. That's where I want to go when I leave this realm. But I can do that here. My question then becomes, can I do that here with my awareness in this simulation by channeling in the 5D energy through my heart vortex? That's a question I'm going to have to work with by embodying that technique, embodying that choice, and seeing what happens. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te wa. I'll see you again soon.